it's so nice what you're doing for your friend Dan? Helping his girlfriend make his Christmas present. Serena is so grateful because she likes to see the best in people. I like to see the truth.
Yeah? And what's that?
I think you like Dan a little too much. Just thought I should let you know someone's watching. Merry Christmas.
When Jesy Nelson left Little Mix, it was framed as a brave choice to protect her mental health. Her quickly launched solo career had been plagued by controversy and professional setbacks. Her departure was meant to be a new beginning, but it led to a firestorm of accusations, a very public fallout with her former bandmates, and a stalled career. So, now that Jesy is debuting her docuseries, it has all the signs of a redemption arc, but the timing of the release and her recent promotion of the project already stirring the pot against an old band member, it makes me dubious of Nelson's intentions. To really get what's at stake here, we have to go back to December 2020 when Jesy announced she was leaving Little Mix. The reason seemed tragically clear. The constant pressure of being in one of the world's biggest girl groups had shattered her mental health. Fans had seen her struggle for years. Her 2019 documentary, Odd One Out, was a tough look at the obstacles she'd faced while in the group since she won X Factor. I remember a striking scene when she confessed to trying to end herself because she was struggling to be accepted, and yet people kept ripping her to shreds.
When I'd lost quite a bit of weight, we were going back on X Factor to perform our new single. And I didn't give a shit if the performance was going to be good. All I cared about was people seeing me and going, oh, she looks good, she's lost weight. Like, that's all I wanted people to say when they saw the performance. Get your back off the wall. Don't you get comfortable. And I just literally, I starved myself for a week. I didn't eat anything, so I thought if I eat, then I'm going to put on weight and then people are going to call me fat. And then the next day, the first interview that we had, the lady come in and she said, have you seen what's been said about you online, Jesy? Katie Hopkins just basically called you fat. All I remember feeling at that time was, what's the fucking point? I've just starved myself for a week and I'm still getting called fat.
And I remember thinking, I just need to make this go away. And it was the first time I thought, I'm gonna do this. Like, I'm just gonna end this.
After watching that, I immediately understood that Jesy worked in a minefield, in an industry where not looking marketable can affect your job. I can only imagine how much anguish that'd be on her sanity. And I'm sure it took a toll on the other girls too. They also tried to fit into the pop star image as well. I mean, Leigh lost half her body weight, and it doesn't seem like a coincidence that Jade appears more comfortable with her new body now that she's no longer in Little Mix, especially since that she's been struggling with an ED like Jesy as well. Pop stardom demands incredibly thick skin. Jesy kept up a good front up until the confetti era. That's when the cracks started to show. When Jesy finally left Little Mix, she said a massive weight had been lifted. No pun intended. She was free from the daily scrutiny and anxiety, something the fans were grateful for. She sacrificed so many years giving the people what they wanted, so everyone kind of understood that, yeah, now was the perfect time to put herself first. She deserved it. This was the story the public sympathized with, a young woman choosing herself over her career.
And I feel so lucky.
A scenario many people was going through during shutdowns at the time. It seemed like a complete, definitive, and deeply personal ending, but it turned out to be just the beginning of a much more complicated chapter. I think by now we all know what happened when Jesy went solo. If you want a little rehash, please give my Mixer Civil War video a watch. But just to highlight 2 points of contention I had with Jesy's solo era, aside from the cultural appropriation, number one was dishonesty. When Jesy announced her solo departure from the group, it really seemed like the industry was the source of her pain, along with being compared to the members. At least that's what I gathered from watching her documentary and reading the open letter to the mixers. So when Jesy started teasing music and announced that she signed a major label deal months after her departure, that raised alarm bells. It made me question, why did she really leave the group? Was it really the industry poisoning her, or did she want a chance to be the breakout star since she had a huge feature and already had a huge promotional machine around her. But then I had to think, why would she run into a situation that would amplify all the worst traits that the industry had to offer her? Maybe that's a question we'll never get an answer to, but I keep thinking, if Jesy had announced her comeback as an independent artist as opposed to an artist on a major label, that to me would have been more palatable. I could wrap my head around that. Seeing her pursue her passions on a smaller level where her mental health could be more protected, but she didn't do that. So it just makes me question, what are their true intentions?
As for those people online who still criticize Jesy to this day for leaving the band to focus on her mental health only to get back in the studio a few weeks later, she added, quote, "For people to think that I would just stop working completely is crazy. Because for me, working on my mental health is going to the studio and creating music that I love. That's what clears my head and makes me happy. It's good for my mental health. I couldn't deal with the pressure of being in the girl group. It wasn't that I couldn't deal with the pressure of being in the spotlight."
Bitch, what part of I'm out do you not understand?
And my second point of contention about Jesy was how dirty she fought her battles. When her blackfishing drama was at its peak, Jesy and Leigh Anne were pitted against each other. If you want full context, please watch my other video about it. It breaks it down quite well. These two were pitted against each other, and the way Jesy went after Leigh was disgusting. Like, everyone cites the infamous Instagram Live where Nicki Minaj said disparaging things about Leigh as well as the other girls. And people always bring up Jesy just sitting there being complicit and all that stuff. Yes, absolutely, we should take note of that. But aside from that, there were so many tabloids about Leigh Anne that I personally believed came from Jesy's camp. A few that stand out is that, there was one story in particular about her not wearing any underwear with some of her outfits. And I'm just like, is this really a story? But whatever, right? But then Jesy pops out and she's linked up with Leigh's her ex-boyfriend. And then she's linked up with her ex-best friend. And I'm like, this level of retaliation will always make me side-eye Jesy. You can tell a lot from a person by how they choose to fight. And the way Jesy fought, she brought a nuke to a knife fight.
You don't feel the need to go around being nasty to people. And so you kind of have to feel sorry for them.
And maybe this is just me, but I don't think she'd ever go after Jade or Perry in the same way she did Leigh Anne. Granted, Perry back then was the most popular member, so there'd be no way she can get away with half of the stuff that she did with Leigh Anne. But because Leigh was the least popular member due to her race, she was also the most vulnerable, and that's without factoring in her postpartum. So I'm guessing that's why Jesy thought that she could try it. And let that sink in, attacking the most vulnerable member at her most sensitive time. Like, I don't know how you correct that. Even if she felt justified, you think 9 years of friendship would factor in some type of restraint. But as I digress. The Instagram incident, as I mentioned before, fractured the fandom and painted Jesy as someone who failed to take accountability.
Horror, very twisted horror.
Her solo career hit a wall just after a year signing with Polydor Records. She was dropped by the label, and there were reports about creative differences being the reason why. There were also speculations that the label wanted her to play more into the drama with her ex-bandmates, something Jesy wasn't interested in supposedly, but who knows. Jessy's debut album was shelved, and she largely faded into the background outside of the spotlight. The promise of her comeback had been poisoned by controversy, leaving a trail of broken trust. Fast forward to today, and Jesy is making the rounds promoting her new docuseries, Life After Little Mix. She did a few interviews, and something that really shook up the fandom recently was her appearance on the Great Company with Jamie Lang podcast. Here, Jessy's very honest about her medical struggles with her children and her time in Little Mix. If you haven't yet, please watch part 1 and part 2. Part 1 literally made me cry. That's where she talks about her twins, SMA, and the issues she goes through just trying to get them diagnosed.
There'll probably be a day, maybe, when the girls turn to me and they say, like, "Mummy, I don't think I can do that." I'll play them the documentary and I'll say, "Yes, you fucking can, because look what you did."
Seeing that interview really humanized her again in my eyes and reminded me of the good traits that Jesy had, and that she wasn't just all villain, right? But anyways, clips from this podcast made the rounds, most notably the one where Jesy admits to staying in Little Mix because of the money, despite how bad her mental health was struggling.
From the minute I got off X Factor, I felt like I didn't want to be in it. It was my dream. But the way it was making me feel, I just felt like I was faking it the whole time, because internally I was so sad. And my brother was like, "You are so much stronger than what you give yourself credit for. And I think you can stick this out for another few years." I'm just going to be completely honest with what he said. He was like, "Just make as much money as you can.
He said, you know, you've got a chance to really change like your family's life.
Fans saw this as a slight to the other girls and further demonized Jesy for not being a true friend and only being in it for the money, which I don't totally agree with. I think it's more nuanced than that. All the girls, you know, came from working backgrounds, so they understood Little Mix's financial benefits. In their book, Our World, all the girls mentioned wanting to financially help out their families, and it was heavily implied, or, you know, it was very obvious that they were using Little Mix in that way to help out their families. Like, come on now. With all that said, I highly doubt it was only about the money. Jesy was in Little Mix for like nearly a decade. It takes more than money to continue for that long. But aside from that, if Jesy was only in it for the money, in my opinion, the fact that she sacrificed her mental health, it just makes up for it. Like, she paid for that apartment.
Oh, I paid for that apartment.
She almost took herself out, for Pete's sake. Something else I wanted to mention was the response to the podcast. There were some fans who interpreted this interview as a correction to Jesy's past controversies, that Jesy never actually did anything wrong, and if we wait long enough, the docuseries will vindicate all her bad choices, absolving her of any wrongdoing, and ultimately clarifying who the real villain is. You know, hint, hint, people are always pointing to Leigh Anne, and these people have already started up another wave of hate towards her, which is getting really tiring.
I actually genuinely feel sorry for Troll.
Listen, people, Jesy put herself in this position, from the bad creative choices, from that infamous music video, to the lack of accountability that she had during her public fallout, and how dirty she fought trying to defend herself. She did a lot of bad things. Instead of absolving her from her terrible actions, we should understand that even though Jesy is going through a terrible medical experience with her twins and has shown strength and resilience and all these great attributes throughout the whole ordeal, she still hurt a lot of people in her past. We have to contend with both truths. I hope she changed for the better. I've seen lots of promising moments in the interview where Jesy talks about bad habits of sulking, becoming self-centered when dealing with her issues, and growing from that since becoming a mom. Jesy's also mentioned going to the lowest levels when she feels unsafe. All these traits, if you really think about it, can actually explain her past behaviors, but I still have my reservations about Jesy. But before I dive deeper into my hangups, I'll give Jesy some credit. She seems to be passionate about championing a cause. For example, she had a 2019 doc that showcased mental health awareness, then released Bad Things back in 2023 independently, a track that tackled the serious themes of DV and earned praise from the charity Women's Aid. This move seemed like her first attempt to reframe her narrative from a controversial pop star to a serious artist with a powerful message. And more recently, she's come out to awareness on SMA, and to be fair, she's made efforts to acknowledge the good with the bad when it comes to her Little Mix tenure. This attempt at nuance shows she might be trying to mend fences, or at least reshape the public's memory after the messy breakup. But, and this is a big but, I need for her to take accountability of her past actions. Otherwise, all the efforts that she's made so far will fall short, because the truth is, her credibility has been severely damaged. She's no longer just a victim of online trolls. Like, now her story is also being documented as the architect of her own professional downfall, and some might say that she's even been a bully herself. Factoring this, as well as peeping how her marketing has closely followed Leigh Anne's album campaign for like a few months now, it makes me real sus. Like, did the docuseries need to drop a week before Leigh Anne's album? Really? Has anyone clocked that, or am I just reaching? Because depending on what direction Jesy takes with her docuseries, it could send a new wave of hate towards Leigh Anne, which I don't think is fair. Jesy Nelson is at a career crossroads, defined by a series of conflicting truths. There's the truth of her undeniable suffering from online abuse and industry pressure. Then there's the truth of her disastrous solo career, marked by a slew of terrible actions and a shocking lack of loyalty. And now there's the new truth of her being a mom, fighting for her children amidst their medical dilemma. Jesy hopes by taking control, the dark cloud over her career will finally dissipate. But in her quest to control the narrative, she may have created a new, even more precarious one. Will this new rebrand be the key to her redemption? Or will the missteps of her past prove to be too much for the public to forgive and to forget? The ball is in Jesy's court, and I hope she makes the right choices. Only time will tell. As always, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, hype, subscribe, all that good stuff. Goodbye.